So one of my more popular videos on the channel is about the fault about the Glyn Johns technique that nobody talks about. I'd like to talk about that today. Do I really hate the Glyn Johns technique? I mean, what's my deal? So we'll be checking out some examples today and diving in more to some of my thoughts about the Glyn Johns technique for recording drums. Let's check it out. Well, my name is Ryan Earnhardt from CreativeSoundLab.tv, and no, I don't actually hate the Glyn Johns technique. It is a difficult technique. I'll tell you why in a moment. But I have a lot of respect for Glyn Johns and a lot of respect for the technique, and I certainly enjoy the recordings that he made with it. So it really comes down to the fact that it's difficult for me to teach in a reliable way, and then for the students that I teach, for them to repeat it and get repeated results time after time. I have techniques that I teach in my courses that pretty much avoid this technique because it's full of challenges. And I really want to talk to you today and show you some examples of why this is so challenging. It really comes down, I think, to three things, or maybe a few more. But obviously, the drummer has to be balanced, okay? So we have to have drummers that really know how to play balanced and not bash one element and then, barely hit others. Second, it's about the raw sounds of the kit. So the tuning, the heads, and the muffling. Even the types of cymbals, cymbal selection. And this stuff is really important when you're not close miking things because you can't hide these certain things. If the floor tom doesn't have enough beef, you can't use the proximity effect out of that close mic to help you along. You got to use old school tuning to get that fullness out. Now, the third thing is really what I want to talk about today, and that is where this technique usually is pulled off for a lot of us, is we don't, have a giant recording room, a giant live room. We're recording in our family room, our living room, our bedrooms, rooms like this even. This is a 7.5 foot high ceilings. We don't have a multi-million-dollar facility, so we're recording in something that wasn't designed and engineered as a studio for recording. And so this really comes into play here because the room is not very forgiving. You move a mic just a little bit and the sound can change a lot. And you have to really be willing and have the time to experiment. Now, this microphone here is going to sound different than that just because of the height, the width, and the depth in the room. If you move this mic front to back a little bit, it will change how it actually sounds. And so this next test, I'm going to be just showing you two positions here. I'm going to be showing you kind of the worst position, which was kind of over the drum kit, typically where this mic would go. And then the kind of best position, which really kind of shocked me, but it was kind of off to the side. And I think there's a huge difference. I believe that the difference in sound that we're going to hear right now is because of the room. And this is a pretty well-treated room, but still, I just think this technique is so unforgiving and so temperamental. Let's check this out. Okay, so first example, we had a really thin snare drum. Second example, snare drum was super thick. Kick drum, really nice sounding. This would go great with just like a little compression. We'd be there, right? So it's almost like the Glyn Johns technique is worse off than just using a single microphone. We're trying to make a pair of microphones cohesive to create a stereo drum sound, and in doing so, we have two microphones that are just totally different sounding. They're the same mic, but just in the position of the room, they sound totally different. And that's really frustrating. It's very time-consuming to try to get both microphones sounding about the same if we're trying to really make these as a pair. Now, the second issue really happens with perspective. So this could be any size room. And this is when a microphone, lowers in altitude to the drum set. So we have a high microphone, then we can lower it, and eventually it's going to hit the point where vibrations coming off the bottom and vibrations coming off the top are coming around and meeting. And I have a little theory that it's nulling out right to the side of the drum. And we've heard this actually in a previous video I did about the recording drums with one mic in a small room. And I have an AEA N8, and we can actually hear it as I go in closer to this tom. The high tom kind of gets canceled out a little bit. And I believe that's why, is that vibrations coming off the bottom and the top are meeting in the middle, and there's a slight cancellation there. So check this out. This is the kind of my favorite position, which is kind of on the side, but then move it 1 foot lower, and we get to that kind of no sound zone. Let's check it out. Okay, crazy, right? It's almost like the snare is just gone. There's lots of snare sound there, but that fullness, okay, that's what I'm listening to, the fullness between the first example, the second example, it's very different, okay? So again, this is what really makes this so challenging. Okay, so now that I've kind of cleared the air on kind of my beef with the Glyn Johns, I want to show you what this sounds like, because I was trying to reproduce those examples, and even this sounds different. I mean, what's the deal? The same drummer and the same drum set, it hasn't even moved, and I can't even repeat the results. It's just got to be frustrating for somebody that's got to record different drummers from different bands. But check this out. This actually didn't sound so bad, okay? There's a little bit of difference in the snare sound between the two mics, but I added some compression and some EQ to each of the elements here, and I got this sound. Okay, so pretty good, you know? I actually like that sound. If I had, say, an 8-channel interface, I would totally do this technique and then use the other channels for electric guitar, bass, and vocal. And I'd be set, okay? Now, my techniques on that, let's see here. This is an RE20 on kick, Funkin' Work transformer in the 57 there, and the Rode NT 2000s. I did 1176 by UAD on this, and I cut out some of the 150 on that. I cut out some of the 200 on snare, and I added some of the lows to pick up some of the toms. And then I compressed those jointly with the UAD 1176 and compressed the snare. That was a LA3A. So, I mean, quick mixing job, but I thought that sounded pretty good. So it's really not that bad after all. It's just chasing that tone and getting consistency. It just will drive you nuts. So let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear your comments down below and hear your thoughts. I mean, how much do you use the Glyn Johns technique to get a drum sound? For me, I usually go for more dependable techniques that I know I can just nail, like the first or second time of setting up the mics. So let me know what you thought in the comments below.